Have you ever wondered why your adult children, whom you love dearly, seem increasingly distant? The calls become less frequent, the visits fewer and farther between, an invisible gap widening that you just can't explain? You've spent your life nurturing them, sacrificing for them, so why, at this stage, do you sometimes feel so alone within your own family? The truth might shock you, and perhaps even hurt. It's highly possible the cause isn't your children's indifference, but rather the seemingly harmless words, the common phrases you use every day. These sugar-coated bullets might be silently pushing your children further away than you realize. And a serious warning, there is one phrase among them, specifically number 2, which we'll dissect shortly, that is so devastatingly toxic. It could absolutely be the reason your children completely cut off contact, maybe even never want to see you again. Welcome back to Life in Words. I'm host's name, channel introduction, and over many years of working with and counseling families navigating the often difficult communication challenges between generations, I've witnessed firsthand the invisible yet potent power of words, how they can build up or utterly destroy our most sacred relationships. Today, I'm going to share with you not just 5 toxic phrases that older parents absolutely need to avoid when talking to their adult children, but more importantly, I'll show you how to recognize the venom in your own words and replace it with communication that builds, heals, and overflows with love. The ultimate goal is to help you not only understand the root cause of the distance, but also to equip you with the tools to draw your children closer, making these precious later years truly a time of warmth and family connection. Are you curious to know what that critical phrase number 2 is and how to ensure you never accidentally utter it? Let's dive deep into this issue. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any insightful analysis and practical solutions from Life in Words. Let's begin right now. Before we analyze each specific phrase, I want to share the story of Harriet, a 72-year-old woman from California I had the opportunity to work with. Harriet came to me feeling deeply saddened and quite confused. She has 3 grown children, all successful with their own lives and families. However, she sensed a chilling distance growing between them. The phone calls were less frequent, visits were rare, and the atmosphere during family gatherings, when they happened, often felt tense. She couldn't understand why, because in her heart, she truly believed she loved her children unconditionally and always wanted the best for them. "I honestly don't know what I did wrong," Harriet shared with me, her voice full of hurt and bewilderment. "It's like they just don't need me anymore." Through our counseling process, particularly after an emotional dialogue between her and her youngest daughter, the truth gradually came to light. Her daughter, with immense courage, helped Harriet realize that certain phrases and comments Harriet thought were normal, even just her way of showing motherly concern, actually made her children feel heavily criticized, overly controlled, or burdened by an unpayable emotional debt. These negative feelings, accumulated over many years, had built an invisible wall between them. Initially, Harriet felt shocked and defensive, but driven by a powerful desire to reconnect, and with commendable openness for her age, Harriet began to examine her own communication style. She learned to truly listen more, to replace judgment with empathy, and to express her own feelings and needs honestly, but without causing harm. The change didn't happen overnight, but the results were truly remarkable. Within about 3 months of Harriet committing to change, the family atmosphere warmed noticeably. Phone calls became more natural and frequent. Visits felt less forced. Her children started sharing more openly about their lives, their struggles, and their joys. Harriet felt the loving connection, which she feared was broken, being powerfully re-established. Harriet's story is a powerful testament. It shows that, very often, the distance isn't because love has faded, but because the way we communicate that love is no longer effective, or worse, it's actually causing pain. So, what are these toxic phrases that Harriet and so many other older parents unintentionally use? Let's break down the 5 most common ones to avoid, starting with the first. So what are these toxic phrases that Harriet and many other older parents unintentionally use? Let's break down the 5 most common ones to avoid, starting with the first, one that probably sounds very familiar. Toxic phrase number 1. After everything I've done for you. On the surface, this might seem like just a reminder of the sacrifices made, the boundless love given by a parent. Perhaps it's said when you feel unappreciated or when you want your children to do something your way. But let's pause for a moment and consider the underlying message this phrase really sends. When you say, "After everything I've done for you," you are inadvertently casting your children in the role of debtors. You're turning unconditional love and care into a massive emotional debt they can likely never fully repay. It implies that your past actions were conditional, that your children are obligated to pay you back with obedience, attention exactly how you want it, or even by sacrificing their own needs and desires. What's the result? Instead of feeling grateful, your adult children are more likely to feel guilt-ridden, burdened, and even resentful. They feel as though your love isn't a gift, but a heavy transaction. This constant sense of indebtedness makes them want to pull away rather than draw closer, because each interaction becomes a reminder of the debt they can't repay. Sacred love is suddenly transformed into a high-pressure business deal. Consider the case of George, 76. He worked incredibly hard and sacrificed a lot to put his son through a prestigious university. Whenever his son made a decision George didn't fully agree with, or when he couldn't visit as often as George expected, George would often sigh and say, "I don't ask for much, son, but after everything I invested in your education..." That phrase left his son constantly feeling guilty and pressured. He knew his father loved him, but he also felt like he could never live up to the expectations required to repay his father. Gradually, he shared less about his own struggles or plans, and calls home became less frequent, simply because he wanted to avoid that feeling of guilt. So, if you're feeling hurt, lonely, or wishing for more attention from your children, instead of resorting to this guilt-inducing phrase, try a different approach. Express your true feelings and needs directly and genuinely. For example, instead of, "After everything I've done for you," try saying, "I really miss hearing your voice. I've been feeling a bit lonely lately. Would you happen to have time for a quick cup of tea this weekend? I'm so happy and proud of what you've achieved." By directly expressing your own feelings instead of invoking past deeds, you create a safe space for connection where love can be expressed naturally, without the heavy weight of guilt or obligation. If the first phrase creates a sense of debt, this second phrase directly attacks one of your child's most important relationships, putting them in an agonizing no-win situation. Toxic. Phrase number 2. Your spouse is turning you against me. This is the heavy artillery of toxic communication. When you utter this sentence, you're doing more than just expressing dissatisfaction or feeling left out. You are sowing seeds of doubt, division, and directly accusing your child's chosen life partner, the person they've built a life with. The underlying message of this phrase is incredibly destructive. It implies your child isn't intelligent or independent enough to think for themselves, easily manipulated by others, in this case, their spouse. It forces your child into an impossible and painful choice: side with their parent or side with their spouse. This is a choice no one should ever have to make. It directly attacks the foundation of your child's marriage, attempting to weaken the most important bond they are building. It demonstrates a profound lack of respect for your child's choice of partner and their own adulthood. The consequences of this phrase are often catastrophic. It not only causes extreme stress for your child, leaving them feeling torn apart, but it can also severely damage the relationship between your child and their spouse. The accused son-in-law or daughter-in-law will feel unfairly attacked, slandered, and will undoubtedly become defensive, possibly even hostile towards you. This further fuels conflict within your child's own family unit. And what is the ultimate reaction of the child caught in this impossible bind? Very often, to protect their marriage, to shield their spouse from constant attacks, and to escape the unbearable tension, they will choose to distance themselves, sometimes even completely cutting off contact with the parent causing the division. This is precisely why this phrase can make children cut you off forever. Consider the story of Brenda, 68. She felt her son, Michael, had become less attentive since getting married. Instead of exploring the real reasons, she repeatedly hinted and finally told Michael directly, "I know you don't mean to, Michael, but it's clear your wife, Sarah, is poisoning your mind against me. She's trying to drive a wedge between us." Michael tried to explain that Sarah wasn't doing that at all, that he was simply busy with work and his new family. But Brenda refused to listen, constantly blaming her daughter-in-law. It culminated in a heated argument where Michael tearfully said, "Mom, you constantly attack my wife and my marriage. If you can't respect my choices and the woman I love, then maybe we need some space." That space lasted for 18 months, during which Michael had no contact with his mother. The relationship was only partially repaired after Brenda acknowledged her mistake and apologized to both of them. So, if you feel a shift in your relationship with your child after they marry, or if you don't quite click with your son or daughter-in-law, instead of blaming and attacking, try a more constructive and respectful approach. Focus on your relationship with your child. "I feel like we haven't connected as much lately. I miss our talks. Is there anything I can do to help us reconnect?" Express a desire to connect with both of them. "I value both of you so much and really want to have a good relationship with your whole family." Inquire instead of accuse. If there's a specific issue, try asking gently. For example, "I've noticed you seem a bit distant lately. Is everything okay? Or is there something bothering you that I might be able to help with?" Absolutely avoid making your child's spouse the scapegoat for your own negative feelings or insecurities. Respecting their choices and their happiness is fundamental to a healthy, multi-generational family relationship. Now that we've navigated the minefield of phrase number 2, let's examine another one that might seem less damaging on the surface, but silently creates distance and resentment just the same. Toxic phrase number 3. "In my day, we did things differently." This phrase is often delivered with good intentions. Maybe you're sharing experiences, offering advice based on what worked in the past, or simply making an observation about generational differences. However, let's take a closer look at how your adult children might perceive it. The underlying message this statement often carries is, "The old way was the right, better way." It implies a subtle judgment that your children's current approach, whether it's parenting, finances, lifestyle choices, isn't quite good enough, or perhaps even wrong. A lack of acknowledgement or respect for the present context. The world changes constantly. What worked in your day might no longer be relevant or feasible in the current economic, social, or technological landscape your children inhabit. This phrase often dismisses those crucial differences. A feeling of being dismissed or untrusted. When you constantly compare and imply "my way was better," your children might feel you don't trust their ability to make their own decisions or solve their own problems. What's the consequence? Instead of receiving your advice as valuable shared experience, your children may feel judged, belittled, and misunderstood. This creates a defensive wall and an unnecessary generational gap. They might stop sharing their struggles or decisions with you to avoid hearing comparisons or advice framed as "back in my day." The relationship, which could be a source of mutual support and learning, becomes a subtle battleground between old and new. Timothy, 74, adored his new grandchild. However, he frequently offered unsolicited advice on baby care based on his experiences raising children 40 years prior. He'd often tell his daughter, "In our day, we weren't so fussy. We just let them cry it out a bit, good for the lungs." Or, "We never did baby-led weaning back then, rice cereal was the best." His daughter Jessica, while knowing her father meant well, felt incredibly frustrated and pressured. She had done extensive research on current evidence-based parenting practices and felt her father's advice was outdated, sometimes even contradicting her pediatrician's recommendations. Every time Timothy started with "in my day," Jessica felt dismissed and just wanted the conversation to end. So, how can you share your valuable experience without creating judgment? Ask before advising. Instead of imposing your experience, ask if they'd like to hear it. For example, "I see you're navigating specific issue. Would it be helpful at all to hear what worked for me back in the day? Maybe something might spark an idea?" Share as a story, not a directive. Frame your experience as a personal anecdote or lesson learned, rather than the one true way. "I remember when I was raising you kids, there was one time I tried your old method, and it seemed to work pretty well for us back then." Acknowledge differences and the current context. Show you understand times have changed. Of course, things are very different now, but this is how we managed. Focus on support, not criticism. Express confidence in their abilities. "I trust you'll figure out what's best for your family. I just wanted to offer my experience in case it's useful." Remember, your experience is invaluable, but how you share it determines whether it will be received. Respecting your children's generation and choices is key to maintaining a harmonious connection. After phrases involving accusation or generational comparison, this fourth phrase targets your children's guilt more directly, often stemming from a parent's feelings of loneliness or being forgotten. Toxic phrase number 4. "You never visit, call me." This is a very common complaint. When you're missing your kids, longing for a call or a visit that doesn't come, this phrase can slip out naturally. You simply want to express that you miss them and desire more connection. But the word "never" or similar absolute terms is precisely the problem. The underlying message this complaint usually sends is exaggeration and inaccuracy. It's rarely true that your children never call or visit. Perhaps the frequency isn't what you desire, but using "never" completely negates any effort they have made, no matter how small. Inducing guilt and defensiveness. When accused in such absolute terms, the natural reaction isn't empathy, but feeling unfairly attacked. They'll immediately think of the times they did call or visit and feel their efforts go unacknowledged. This makes them want to defend themselves, explain, or even get irritated, creating pressure and fatigue. Instead of encouraging more contact, this phrase turns calling or visiting into a heavy obligation performed to avoid parental disappointment or reprimand. This pressure can make children feel weary and ultimately make them want to avoid contact even more. Masking the real need. Behind the accusation, "you never call," is often the real need. "I feel lonely and want to connect with you." But the negative phrasing obscures that vulnerable need. Consider Diane, 70. Her children all lived in different cities and had busy jobs and families. Although they tried to call her once a week and visit occasionally for holidays, Diane always felt it wasn't enough. Almost every phone call involved her sighing, "You kids never think about your old mother." A whole week goes by and not a single call. Or, "I never see you bring the grandkids over to visit." These complaints, though born from missing her family, made her children feel incredibly pressured and guilty. They knew their mother was lonely, but they also felt their efforts were never sufficient. Instead of enjoying calling their mom, it started to feel like a chore, sometimes delaying the call simply because they didn't want to hear the guilt trip again. So how can you express your desire for connection without inducing guilt or pressure? Focus on your feelings, not their actions or lack thereof. Instead of, "You never call," say, "I feel really happy, warm when I get a call from you," or, "I was just thinking about you and wondering how you're doing." Acknowledge positive efforts, instead of focusing on when they don't call. Express appreciation for when they do. I really enjoyed our chat last Tuesday evening. This naturally encourages positive behavior. Make specific requests instead of general complaints. If you want to see them, make a specific invitation. "Are you free this weekend? I'd love to have you over for lunch." Express missing them directly and positively. "I miss you, the grandkids, so much," is far simpler and more heartfelt than an accusation. Shifting from blame and complaints to expressing positive feelings and desires can completely change the dynamic of the relationship, making your children feel loved and want to connect, rather than feeling guilty and wanting to avoid it. We've navigated through 4 phrases that can inflict harm in various ways, from inducing debt and division to judgment and guilt. This final phrase is perhaps the most emotionally charged, wielding a highly sensitive weapon: the finite nature of life itself. Toxic phrase number 5. "You'll regret it when I'm gone." This is a highly emotionally manipulative statement. It's often uttered when a parent feels neglected, ignored, or wants their child to change their behavior immediately. By invoking the prospect of death and future regret, this phrase aims directly at the child's sense of duty and fear of loss. Its underlying message is incredibly heavy, using death as a tool of coercion. It turns the inevitable reality of passing away into a threat, a pressure tactic to make children comply with your wishes now, lest they carry agonizing guilt later, creating an immense emotional burden. It places the responsibility for your happiness or unhappiness in your final years onto your children's shoulders, as well as the responsibility for their own future feelings of regret, fostering resentment and distance. Although the intent might be to pull children closer, being manipulated by guilt related to death often has the opposite effect. Children may feel forced, negatively controlled, and ultimately want to distance themselves to protect their own emotional well-being from manipulation. Devaluing present moments. Instead of focusing on creating beautiful memories while you still can, this phrase casts a dark shadow of future regret over the current relationship. Richard, 78, felt very lonely after his wife passed away. He frequently told his children whenever they couldn't meet his demands, like visiting immediately or calling daily, "You just wait. When I'm gone, you'll regret not spending time with me." Initially, this made his children feel guilty and try harder. But gradually, they grew weary and resentful of being constantly emotionally blackmailed with the prospect of his death. They started to feel that visiting or calling wasn't coming from natural affection anymore, but felt like a heavy obligation performed to avoid the assigned guilt. As a result, they contacted him even less frequently because they didn't want to face that pressure. So, instead of resorting to this deeply wounding weapon, how can you express your desire to be with your children and grandchildren during these precious years? Directly express the value of connection. These family moments together mean so much to me at this stage. Express desire positively. I'm really looking forward to seeing you, the grandkids, this weekend. Or, wouldn't it be lovely if we could do a specific activity together soon? Share true feelings healthily. I sometimes feel a bit down, lonely these days, and having you around truly brightens my day. Focus on creating good memories. I'd love for us to create more happy memories together while we can. Let these years be filled with love, appreciation, and genuine connection, not overshadowed by the fear of regret or the burden of guilt. True love doesn't require manipulation. Why do these phrases cause harm? The science of stress response and avoidance. You might be thinking, they're just words. How serious can it be? But brain science and psychology show us that words, especially those carrying blame, judgment, or emotional manipulation, have a direct and powerful impact on the listener's physiology and psychology. When an adult child hears phrases like, "After everything I've done for you," "Your spouse is turning you against me," or "You'll regret it when I'm gone," their brain doesn't just process the information neutrally. It registers these words as a form of emotional attack or threat. What happens next? Their nervous system triggers an ancient instinctual response designed to protect us from danger. The stress response, commonly known as fight, flight, or freeze. Fight. They might react with anger, argue back, try to defend themselves, or counter-accuse. This leads to heated confrontations and further damages the relationship. Flight. This is a very common reaction in these situations. To avoid the discomfort, guilt, pressure, or conflict, the child seeks to withdraw from the source of the stress, which is you and conversations with you. They might avoid calls, decline invitations, or keep conversations as superficial as possible. This isn't because they stopped loving you. It's a psychological self-protection mechanism to prevent further emotional pain. Freeze. Sometimes they might feel overwhelmed, helpless, and unsure how to react. They might shut down, withdraw emotionally, and become distant even while physically present. Each time these toxic phrases are repeated, this stress response is reactivated. Gradually, your child's brain forms a negative association. Interaction with parent equals stress, pain, exhaustion. And to protect their mental health, the simplest survival mechanism is to minimize that interaction. Numerous studies, including reputable work from top universities like Harvard on the impact of chronic stress, have shown that constantly facing criticism, blame, or emotional manipulation can have long-term negative effects on mental and even physical health. Our brains are wired to seek safety and avoid pain. Understanding this scientific mechanism is crucial. It helps us realize that a child's distance is often not a sign of ingratitude or lack of love, but a natural, biologically and psychologically based reaction to a hurtful communication pattern. And the good news is, when we change our communication, we can change their reaction and begin the healing process. So, how can we break this cycle and start communicating more healthily? Let's explore 3 simple yet effective practical steps you can start using right away. Practical Guide: 3 golden steps to change communication and heal relationships. Changing habits is never easy, especially those related to how we express emotions and interact with our dearest loved ones. But it's entirely possible, and it starts with small, conscious steps. Step 1. Pause and become self-aware. This is the most crucial foundational step. Before you utter a complaint, a reproach, or offer advice you're itching to give, pause for a beat. Ask yourself these key questions. What am I really feeling right now? Is it loneliness, sadness, disappointment, fear, or simply missing my child? What is motivating me to say this? Do I feel unheard, disrespected, or am I genuinely worried about them? What do I truly want from this conversation? Do I want them to call more, to listen to my advice, or simply to feel connected and loved? This self-awareness helps you separate your immediate emotion from your automatic reaction. Instead of acting out of impulse or old hurts, you begin to understand the real need behind the words you're about to speak. Maybe you realize that behind "you never call me" isn't anger, but a fear of being forgotten. Behind "in my day we did things differently" isn't judgment, but a desire to share experience and feel useful. Step 2. Take a breath and choose your words. Once you've paused and identified your feelings and needs, take a deep breath. This simple act works wonders in calming a stressed nervous system, helping you regain composure and control your reaction. In this precious pause, consciously choose your phrasing. Instead of falling back into the familiar rut of toxic phrases, consider, is there another way to say what I want without causing hurt, without blaming, without manipulating? Is there a more positive, constructive way to express this? For example, if you realize you're feeling lonely, step 1, instead of blurting out, "you never call," in that pause, step 2, you might think, "I'll say that I miss them and would love to hear their voice." Step 3. Express needs directly and without blame. This is where you put the choice from step 2 into practice. The core principle here is using "I feel" or "I need," "would like" statements instead of accusatory "you" statements. Instead of "you never call me," try, "I feel a bit sad, lonely when I haven't heard from you in a while. It makes my day when I get your call." Instead of "your spouse is turning you against me," try, "I feel like there's been some distance between us lately. I'd love if we could talk more openly." Instead of "in my day, we did things differently," try, "I have some experience with this. Would you be open to hearing about it?" Instead of "after everything I've done for you," try, "I really cherish the times we did something together." Instead of "you'll regret it when I'm gone," try, "I truly treasure our family time together." By directly expressing your feelings and needs sincerely, without judgment or blame, you open the door for understanding and empathy from your children. They are much more likely to receive and respond positively when they don't feel attacked or pressured. This change takes time and consistent practice. There will be times you slip back into old habits. That's normal. The important thing is to recognize it, correct it, and keep trying. Every time you successfully apply these 3 steps, it's a step forward in healing and strengthening your relationship with your loved ones. Transformation Story: Patricia's Journey to Reclaiming Love. Theory is one thing, but does applying it in real life actually work? The answer is a resounding and moving yes, and the story of Patricia, 75, is clear proof. Patricia had endured a long period of strained relationships with all 3 of her adult children. She was a devoted mother, but also somewhat controlling, and frequently used the kind of critical, complaining phrases we've discussed, especially "after everything I've done for you" and "in my day." She couldn't understand why her children were increasingly distant, shared less, and often seemed irritated by her suggestions. She felt hurt and unappreciated. The tension grew to the point where family gatherings became a heavy obligation for everyone involved. After a difficult but honest conversation with her eldest son, Patricia finally, painfully, recognized that her communication style was a huge part of the problem. It was a hard truth to accept, but Patricia chose not to give up. She joined a support group for parents and read books on effective communication. She practiced the 3 steps we just discussed: pausing to identify her true feelings, breathing and choosing alternative words, and expressing her needs directly without blame. Initially, it was very difficult. She often slipped back into old patterns, but she persisted. Every time she caught herself about to voice a complaint, she tried to pause, breathe, and find a different way. Instead of saying, "Why don't you ever keep the house tidy like I used to?" she learned to say, "I feel more relaxed when the house is neat. Is there anything I can do to help out?" Instead of, "After everything I invested in your education," she shifted to, "I'm so proud of your success." Gradually, a subtle shift began to happen. Her children, initially skeptical, started noticing the difference. They saw their mother being less judgmental, listening more, and expressing affection more warmly. The defensive walls between them slowly came down. They started sharing openly again. Phone calls became real conversations, not obligations. The biggest breakthrough came about 6 months into Patricia's journey of change. Her youngest daughter, who had previously avoided one-on-one time, called spontaneously and invited her mom on a weekend getaway, just the 2 of them. It was the first time in years they had spent truly joyful, connected time together. Reflecting on her story, Patricia said something that stuck with me. "They didn't stop loving me, they just couldn't handle my communication style anymore." Patricia's story is a hopeful reminder that, at any age, we have the capacity to change and heal. It takes courage to look at ourselves honestly and persistence to practice new ways of communicating, but true love and connection can absolutely be rebuilt. Conclusion and call to action: rebuilding the bridge of love. So, what's the biggest takeaway today? It's recognizing and actively eliminating those 5 toxic phrases from our daily communication vocabulary. "After everything I've done for you, your spouse is turning you against me." "In my day, we did things differently." "You never call me. You'll regret it when I'm gone." At the same time, even more important than avoidance is to actively replace them with positive, sincere expressions that state your feelings and needs directly, without resorting to blame, judgment, or manipulation. As we saw in Harriet's and Patricia's stories, this change, while not always easy, is entirely possible and can yield wonderfully healing results. The final message Life in Words wants to leave you with is this: it is never too late to change, to learn, and to heal wounds. Age is not a barrier to personal growth or improving relationships. It's the willingness to look inward and the effort to change that truly matters. Warm, loving, respectful relationships with adult children can absolutely be rebuilt, even if there have been cracks in the past. So, what will you do with this knowledge? I invite you to take a few concrete actions today. Self-reflect. Be honest with yourself. Do you recognize using one or more of these phrases? Recognition is the most crucial first step. Make a small commitment. Choose one positive alternative phrase from the suggestions in this video that resonates with you, and commit to practicing it in your very next conversation with your child. Show your support. If this video offered valuable insights, please hit that like button to let us know. Join the community. Do you have a story to share or an effective alternative phrase you've used? Let us and other viewers know in the comment section below. And of course, if you want to keep discovering ways to build better family relationships, communicate more effectively, and enjoy your later years fully and meaningfully, make sure you subscribe to Life in Words and ring that notification bell. We are committed to bringing the most relevant, quality content to our senior community. Finally, if you know someone, a friend, an older relative who might be struggling with their relationship with their children and could benefit from hearing this, please don't hesitate to share this video with them. Your share could make a world of difference. Thank you for spending your valuable time with Life in Words. Remember, your words have creative power. Use them wisely and lovingly. Take good care, and I'll see you in the next video.